So let's stay then with the story and speak to Wits School of Economics and Finance economist Dr. Lumkile Mondi. Dr. Mondi, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, some say that this hike is in line with what some economists, as we've been listening to them warn, say that the market is expecting this particular hike. How do you respond?
The market had long discounted this. And therefore, when we've got a policy of inflation targeting, and the inflation for April is about 6.8%, the governor has to act. And I think he acted within the mandate that our constitution and our policymakers have given him. So I'm not surprised that he continues to act responsibly, given the mandate that our parliament gave him.
And listening to, some people react to this, and others even on various social media platforms, they're saying, it's tough times. We really cannot afford to tighten our belts even further. But I'd like to borrow from what he said. He says that we've just reached restrictive territory and, looking at what is going on now, in the long term, South Africans will benefit from this tight stance, but it will bring down inflation. South Africans are crying that inflation is eroding their incomes, but it's going to get better and, things will look slightly better in the future. It sounds like you agree with what, has just happened.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw when we implemented this policy decision around 2001, we saw the benefits under the Mbeki government, but also how we ran budget surpluses because there was congruency between fiscal and monetary policy. And the Zuma regime inherited huge amounts of money coming from the Mbeki regime, which we have got very little to show for. So in a country whereby there's disconnect between fiscal and monetary policy, where there's no fiscal discipline, there's no financial discipline, there's no accountability. Investment on infrastructure has gone nowhere because we've got a water, we've got an electricity crisis. It's not surprising to find that people are complaining because they should be putting the blame at the politician than the governor, because the governor has done everything according to the book, from his independence to our constitution, but secondly, from the policymaker that gave him a band from 3 to 6 as a policy instrument.
And we saw this afternoon the rand weakening by more than 2% following the announcement. And also then we saw the rand at some point having quite great difficulty and also crashing, just following those allegations that, Russia received weapons from South Africa. Some were saying that they're linking it to that. How much of what we're seeing now is also linked to the rand having difficulties?
Well, people are saying that probably the economic growth of South Africa is going to be lower than expected. So those good dividends that have been coming from SA companies are going to be less, and hence the rand is weakening as a result of institutional investors taking a grim view on the growth side for South Africa and therefore selling some of their shares. But I think in the medium to long term, if the fiscal policy, if our government does the right things, we may be able to see, again, a congruence between fiscal and monetary policy. But that requires leadership, that requires decisive action, that requires accountability, none of which exists in South Africa. And hence, we're grey listed, and hence the governor is the only one that is left to implement the policies that we expect any public institutions to implement. And this really has to account, and South Africans must really go to the polls next year with a view that we want to bring power to the people. We want a government that accounts, a government that uses public funds for the purposes meant. As long as that happens, those that are doing good will always be blamed when those that are failing us get away with it. And I think in this case, as you were saying, Bongiwe, on social media, everyone is giving blame to the Reserve Bank and the governor, when in reality, it is the politicians that have led us to have power outages, in doing so, kill jobs, kill firms, kill growth, and therefore South Africans experiencing hardships.
And Dr. Mondi, someone is watching and listening to us, talk about this tonight, and they're wondering, in light of what you've just said and what has been going on and some of the, the factors that you've cited, which the governor also cited earlier on this afternoon, who or what can cushion ordinary South Africans from these tough times that, they're experiencing right now?
Well, South Africans have to take the pain and have to make the right decision next year at the polls. And the new government that will come in at the polls, whether it's a coalition or in any other form, has to put South Africa first, put South Africans first. And in the absence of that, if the electorate makes other decisions, we are likely to get deeper in a crisis because, as I was saying earlier, the concept of fiscal and financial discipline is not known. We see it in our local government in Johannesburg. We see it in Tshwane, where politicians are busy squabbling when, in fact, the infrastructure in our cities is falling apart and there's no accountability. So until South Africans, voters realize that, and then we take power back by putting parties and individuals in our public spaces that can account and put us first and put our country first, I think we're going to continue having those few individuals who are acting in the interest of South Africans, such as the governor and the South African Reserve Bank, who have continuously stayed the course of what a Reserve Bank does and stay that course. And they cannot deviate from that course until a constitution is changed, until the policy stance from the Minister of Finance changes. At this juncture, they continue to stay the course and continue to do an excellent job. And we should be behind them as they are serving what they are appointed to do.
It sounds like a rock and a hard place, but let me thank you for your time this afternoon, Dr. Mondi. Do appreciate it. That was Wits School of Economics and Finance economist, Dr. Lumkile Mondi.